temperatures, the sand might be hotter. So the ones on the outside might be female because it's hotter over there, whereas the ones on the inside are a little cooler because they're not against that sand. They might be male, but it does depend on location and just like the formation they're in underneath in the egg chamber. We do have our next life cycle stage, which is the hatchling. We are actually in our hatchling season right now. It's coming to an end, but this is when they're in the egg chamber, after those 50 to 80 days, they will hatch and they will crawl towards the brightest horizon. After they make it to the ocean, which sometimes is not always the case, which we will get into later, they will swim towards the Gulf Stream to make it to the Sargasso Sea, which is where they'll spend their time growing and gaining nutrients, eating sargassum and algae, and then pretty much just spending their next life cycle, which is the juvenile. So juveniles are considered like the stages between being a hatchling and being an adult. So they're larger than the hatchlings, but not quite as large as an adult. And during this time, like I mentioned before, this is where they'll just be spending their time floating in the Sargasso Sea, but they'll also start to begin exploring those other habitats and just building strength for nesting season. And lastly, we finally get to our adult sea turtle. So they reach sexual maturity around 15 to 30 years. It really depends on the species and the turtle in itself. But once they reach the sexual maturity, they will migrate towards their breeding grounds, and females at this time will return to their natal beach to lay eggs, which means where they hatched as a hatchling, they will return back there and lay their clutches, which I think is really cool. That's why it's super important that we hatchlings like imprint on the ground before they make it into the ocean. And then once after breeding season is complete, adults will migrate back to their feeding grounds.
Do they nest once a year, or?
It's usually like 1 to 3 times every few years. So it could be with multiple partners as well.
The Pacific doesn't have turtles. Sargasso is Atlantic, right?
Yes.
So for this, we're talking about the turtles in our county. So here, these are the ones we have: the loggerheads, the greens, and the leatherbacks. On the Pacific coast, there is some turtles that are in California. And then we go also, of course, into Costa Rica and Mexico as well. Those juveniles that go out to forage, they'll go to a different ground. So these turtles can swim. They got those powerful flippers. They can go everywhere. And actually, it's really interesting to see how they migrate across seas too. Sometimes these guys that they'll be foraging here, they might nest in the west coast of Africa, which is really cool. So, but for these guys here, they're usually foraging once they're hatchlings out to the Sargasso Sea. That's the closest shot they got. So that's where they're going.
The Gulf of Mexico has a lot of sea turtles too, I guess.
Yes. So they
West
have
Coast of Florida.
West Coast of Florida. Yes. So the whole state has sea turtle nesting. And also in Texas as well, they have some breeding grounds as well for some other species as well.
Does it take them just one night to do this?
Yeah, it can take a couple hours.
They really fast.
Yes.
To dig 6 feet like this?
They're more like 3 feet.
It depends on the species. So usually the bigger ones, they're going to dig way deeper. So our leatherbacks are going to be those like 6 to 7 feet. Emma's going to talk about how big they get. They get up to be like 2,000 pounds. So they have to dig really deep egg chambers. But these little loggerheads, they're the 3rd biggest. So they're going to dig about probably 3 to 4 feet deep, depending. Yeah, but it's all due to that's how they protect their hatchlings for survival. They dig deep and have that time to incubate and crawl up.
Could it be that they're nesting right now?
So our nesting period is from March to October.
So, yeah.
But right now we're in hatchling season. So the nests have been laid kind of earlier, and so now they're starting to come out. And since we're now in September, it's going to be towards the end, but we still have a few couple coming out now.
A few, right?
Yeah, and we have had some late nesters as well, but it's just not as much.
I just saw a new nest on Trenton County. I was kind of really surprised.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
This is our loggerhead. This was on Miami Beach this year at the way beginning of our season. They don't typically nest during the day, but once in a while we're lucky to see it happen. So now we're going to get into the different species of sea turtles. These are all of them. There's 7. We have the Kemp's Ridley, olive ridley, loggerhead, leatherback, green, hawksbill, and flatback. We only have 3 that nest in Miami-Dade County, but we do have 2 others, so 5 in total that will swim on by. So I'm going to get into that, but we see the leatherback, like we mentioned before, the loggerhead, the green, and then we'll see the hawksbill occasionally swimming by, and then the Kemp's Ridley.
What's the one in the bottom right?
Yep.
The
That's
name?
the flatback.
What?
Flatback.
Flatback.
They're only seen in Australia, right?
Oh,
So
so they're not here.
Yeah. Only Australia. So we're going to start with the nesting species here, which is our loggerhead. Like we mentioned before, they're named Creta. And they're our most common nester here in Miami-Dade County. They make up about 95% of our nesting population, and they nest from mid-April to early September. They typically weigh up to 200 to 400 pounds. They are smaller than the other 2 that nest here, but they have really, really big heads. This right here is our loggerhead. They have big heads. Like I said, this is used to crunch on conch shells or crustaceans. So they need that really big jaw to get through to that. I like to say they're kind of like the pit bull of the sea turtles, blockheads. They're super cute.
You have teeth?
No, it's just like a beak.
So what's their primary diet?
Conch shells, shellfish, crustaceans, but they kind of eat whatever they can find for the most part.
Usually they have that beak. A lot of sea turtles, and it's a fused bone. And so these guys, they've been evolved and adapted to have that big head to crush those hard shell crustaceans and conchs and sometimes spiny lobsters.
Mhm.
So that's mainly their diet and kind of like why they have that beak. But they don't really have any teeth. They just have like that fused bone that they use. Most sea turtles do as well too, except the leatherback.
Which we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So our next nesting species in Miami-Dade County is our green sea turtle. Depending on the year, they make up to 5% of the nesting population. They kind of oscillate every year. So this year we had a slow season. We didn't have too many green nests, but the year prior, I wasn't here, but you can attest that there were a lot, right, of greens.
There was a lot more last year than this year, but it fluctuates.
They typically nest from mid-May to September, and they can weigh from 300 to 500 pounds. So they are bigger than our loggerheads, but they have a smaller head. And their diet consists of seagrass and algae, which is actually how they got their name, because their fat actually turns green. Since they eat so much of those greens. It's not because they're green. I know a lot of people think that's why, but nope, it's their fat. And if you ever watch Finding Nemo, Crush is kind of like our representative for the green sea turtles. Yeah, super cute. Your typical sea turtle. And lastly, we have the leatherback. These are monsters. They also make up to 5% of the nesting population in Miami-Dade County. And they nest from mid-March to June. And again, they weigh 1,200 to 2,000 pounds. So they're kind of like the Volkswagen Beetle, like the punch buggy. It's like the size of that almost, the sand. But they are the only sea turtle without a hard shell. It's called leatherback for a reason. So it's very soft. They don't have those scoops like we mentioned before. And then I know you were talking about teeth. They have these right here, which are called papillae. And they're kind of like teeth. They help when they are eating the jellyfish, whatever they get their hands on, that helps the prey from escaping.
So their primary diet is jellyfish.
Jellyfish,
Yes.
other fish. But yeah, they are the largest sea turtle in the entire world, and we're lucky enough to have them in Miami-Dade County.
What's their predator?
Leatherbacks, probably humans. It wouldn't really be. It's a large animal, and they don't really compete with other. They don't have like big competition. These ones don't usually get predated on. It would usually be an incident of accidental take with a fishing boat or some sort of boat collision.
That size, nobody can eat it anyway.
No, they're like, I'm good.
They also like dive the deepest out of all of our.
They will dive very deep.
Giant squid.
They will dive actually deeper than a sperm whale. These guys, so that's like very, very deep. They use their soft shell, like that's their adaptation to dive that deep, so they can kind of contract their shell and be able to go deep dive to get those big jellyfish that are down there. It's their main diet. Lots of bigger marine animals, they eat those gelatinous plankton. It's very common because of the way the energy kind of moves over. It like fills them up more than having to go eat a crab or eat fish, you know? For them, this is like big protein, makes them big and strong. Sometimes we see this too with like whale sharks and other filter features.
You don't get profit like 20 minutes or something.
I think it's like hours for these guys.
These ones can be a couple hours, like probably maybe 4 to 5 hours longer.
Oh,
Depending on how old they are, because they'll dive deeper
and
as they get older.
how old?
For age, it's still undetermined. They're still trying to figure it out because it's hard to determine the age. Some scientists have certain ways to look at it. For these ones, I would say over 65 years. Some can live longer. They've noted the greens can live pretty long. But as far as like just right age, we just don't have a data yet.
And these guys are also closest living relative to the archelon, which is the dinosaur back in the day. So these are as prehistoric as dinosaurs, which is super cool. Does anyone have any other questions about our 3 nesting sea turtles here in Miami-Dade County?
My question was, where typically do they nest?
Um,
Are there areas that are more prevalent?
you want to touch on that? I'm just letting you.
For Miami-Dade County, for the county, we see a lot of them in Miami Beach. That's kind of typically where we see the most of them nest. And then throughout the county, we're mostly seeing our loggerheads, and then our greens are usually up north more, past Sunny Isles, but sometimes Miami Beach as well.
So are there people who report it or people checking?
So that's our program. So we'll get into that. So we're like the monitoring program here in Miami-Dade.
So which ones are most prevalent on Miami Beach? Or
Loggerheads.
Loggerheads.
Those are the ones with the big heads, like the
They
school over
used
there.
to be, I'm sure there's a great decline in nesting. Because I remember, 25, 30 years tons of nest up and down the beach, even with the stakes and everything.
Mhm.
And now if you just see like 4 or 5, it's
Mhm.
exciting, but it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, that's why we're here, because we're trying to increase those odds.
What is the primary sea turtle that nests in the Canaveral seashore? Is that loggerhead?
I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Loggerhead.
But in the whole state, it's mostly loggerhead. But Cape Canaveral definitely posts about their nesting, so I would check them out.
We've been there, it's fantastic.
Oh, I've heard great things.
The hatchlings, yeah.
It's a cool area.
I assume it's loggerhead.
So going off of what you guys were
In cold water like the Arctic, there are no turtles.
Not in the Arctic. The leatherbacks can go pretty north. There's the ones that were on the screen before. The leatherbacks, they can go up to Nova Scotia to actually eat some jellyfish, which is pretty cool. But most of these are tropical and subtropical species. But loggerheads have been known to go also up in temperate waters as well. I'm from actually the Northeast, and so we've had loggerheads that come into Cape Cod Bay. If you folks know where Cape Cod is, Jaws. It's usually go to. They'll be over there eating the crabs in the summer, and then they come back down.
Is there a tagging program
For up north or for here?
in your particular program?
Not for the Miami-Dade County program. We don't tag our turtles, but other groups do. That's mostly with research institutions. But let's get into kind of what we do, which is our role in sea turtle conservation at Emily's Café.
So we work with an eco division for Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces, and we are authorized sea turtle personnel under an FWC permit. It's permit number MTP 15024. And so from March to October, that's our nesting season in Miami-Dade County. So we'll start going out and we'll survey those 19 miles of beaches from Golden Beach all the way to Key Biscayne. And we'll go out there every morning. If you see those, I think you guys were talking before about the stake setups. That's what we do. We also collect all this data for FWC and other federal agencies. I have some pictures. Our permit holder is named Sarah Tyler. So right here, this is actually a loggerhead crawl. So we'll see that in the morning on our little ATV, and we'll know that's either a nest or a false crawl. We'll collect data like the width right here, and then this is what it looks like when we're just taking up our signs. I have some more pictures.
A false crawl. In other words, they crawled up and did not
said,
lay
"Nope."
eggs.
Yeah.
I'm not ready or whatever.
Sometimes it's dependent on
Or they
the
get
area.
startled.
Yeah, so it could be the lighting, it could be the noise, or they just did not like that area. They weren't ready.
They're very picky. So if she's like, no, not today, she'll come back in. Those numbers with our nests and our false crawls, they're pretty comparable. They're pretty like nothing too crazy, but that's pretty normal for their biology.
So once all of those nests begin hatching, like in the time we are right now, we will perform excavations and pulls depending on the circumstance. So a few days after a nest hatches, we can determine this by looking at, you can see the little head, it's kind of hard to see on here, but they leave a little like footprint trail behind them as well. So we can see that nest is hatched. We'll give it a few days and then we'll go in there and we'll excavate it. So we'll count how many eggs are in there, how many have hatched, how many inhabit, and sometimes we have a few little stragglers left behind. And we use that data and send it to FWC just for learning purposes.
So they all don't hatch on the same day.
For the most part, they do, but sometimes it'll be
Is it always a full moon?
no. It could be any time. Yeah, they do. This is more so you, but they follow the brightest horizon to make it out to the ocean, which is usually the moon's reflection on the ocean. But we'll get more into that later.
So when you stake them, do you put down like the date and you can figure out when the hatchings are going to happen?
We do log that data for the state.
But I can't see that.
No, unfortunately not. We have to keep that data just a little bit protected just for the animals. However, we do have some data that we do release to the public. If you're interested, I can point you to those sources for you. Yeah, of course.
But right now we are at like 600 and almost 70 nests.
How many?
670.
For this season?
Yeah, that's like I think rounded up a little
Wow.
bit, but
That's a good number, is that up?
Yeah.
Or is that average or?
It's a pretty good number. It's a little less than we had last year, but they fluctuate. Last year we had 702 nests. And so for this year so far, we have 670. But again, we're still looking at everything
Pretty
and
consistent.
it's pretty good so
That's
far.
in Miami-Dade County.
Yep, for the Miami-Dade County, yeah.
Just a question, sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead.
it's okay.
What is the mortality rate for the turtles hatched? You know, when you watch David Attenborough and it's on a beach, there's thousands of birds that die forming these sea turtles. But we mentioned Miami Beach, it's probably a little more protected and more people around.
So we don't necessarily have a mortality rate, but we do have a survival rate.
Sorry, the opposite, like survival rate. Like,
Yeah.
of,
She's got that for you.
it might be the next slide, but also might not be. Okay, it's not, but we'll go to it. But why are we protecting sea turtles? So conservation is the protection of something from change or loss, so that's kind of where we're stepping in. Sea turtles are keystone species, meaning that they support ecosystem function and balance, so without them, our ecosystems would not be correct. They will not be right, they will not be working the way that they should. Our sea turtles will actually transport nutrients to different areas, which makes them thrive and increases their biodiversity as well. And nearly all these sea turtles, every single one, all 7, are listed as critically endangered, endangered, or threatened, which is why we need to step in and help them out a little bit. So this is the sea turtle extinction risk. So basically all the critically endangered ones are our hawksbill and our Kemp's Ridley. Those are the 2 that we see passing by Miami-Dade County, but not the ones that nest here. And then our endangered ones is our green sea turtle. And then our threatened is the olive ridley and the loggerhead. And then as for flatback, there's like not a lot of data on them since they're just in Australia, so they're deficient.
They're also a new discovered species too, so they have to work on that data to collect it. I believe they thought they were part of loggerhead or green sea turtle, but now they've recently classified it as its own in the past 20-something years. So now they're working to collect that data over there.
So if you find a sea turtle nest anywhere in Dade County, you guys are authorized to protect it. So the hotels, people in the backyards, nobody can do anything about it, right?
Yeah, so we actually go there every morning. We'll go out about 30 minutes before sunrise. So we're the first ones on the beach. So we'll be the first ones to see it. They do typically nest overnight. So of course, other people, if they're on the beach, will see it. But we're kind of the first ones
People are
out
pretty
there.
respectful of the stakes and everything.
For the most part. Of course, there's always going to be some vandalism, but Or we'll have some
Raccoons
issues.
before.
Yeah, so we have a lot of predation, that's for sure. And Key Biscayne, just raccoons.
Well, federal law also probably prevents people from
This gets to your point with that's our survival
From
rate.
harassing these nests too, right?
Yeah, it is illegal.
federal law.
Yeah, but people are jumping on the beach in Miami, so they don't really pay attention. They can't read.
I run the consent guys, the people that run the concessions in all the hotels in the world, they should all have a training program for them and make sure that the people working the concessions and the beach chairs, privately for the apartments or for the hotel, they need to know, they need to be aware and make sure that the guests are aware and the residents are aware. I mean, I think that.
On the West Coast, they make you turn off your porch lights that face the beach. Here, the hotels, condos, leave the lights on, nobody cares. It's screwed up. I guess it messes up a lot of turtles.
She'll get into that. She's working on it.
Yeah.
You're gonna save it. So this is what we were kind of hinting at before. It's only 1 in 1,000 of our little hatchlings make it to adulthood. So it's not very good odds, but we're trying to again increase those odds. That could be
I guess
the
my
only
question
one.
is still like how it gets to the water, like from the nest to the water.
It would be
versus-
1 in 1,000. So once they get into the ocean, like that's their number.
No, understand, I mean, from the nest to the water, I'm sure not 1 out of 1,000
Oh.
ones from the egg to the.
Yeah, in other words, you lose a lot to the birds.
Yeah, like.
And then when you're in the water, they lose a lot to the fish, you know, and,
Yeah.
you know, like anything, yeah.
So that would again still be that number. Is like when they are going past the lizards, going past the birds, past the sharks in the water, these are the ones that are usually able to swim out to the sea, and able to go out. That's why in the nests, so sometimes there'll be around 90 to 120 eggs in that nest. The mom lays a lot because she, was once a hatchling and knows that, not many will make it out. So she does the best she can to lay all those eggs, hoping that they'll hatch really well and then go out. Most of our hatching success for these nests here, they do pretty well. And then, however, we cannot protect them once they're out into the ocean. We just help guide them as best we can and do our protections on that part. If that helps answers your question a little.
Do you go in at night too when they're hatching and actually help them make it to the water?
Unfortunately, our night surveys don't cover that. Our night surveys are mainly focused on identifying problematic lights. So trying to get at that focus. However, our permit with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission is about keeping those nests as natural as possible. So we have the stakes marked off, but we don't come out at night and mess with anything. We try to let the turtles do everything on their own. That's what we have found to be the best success for them, is that they take care of themselves and they go out. They're pretty self-sufficient at a young age, but we do the best that we can. But at night, we kind of let them come out on their own and they crawl out when they go out. We never know actually when a nest does hatch. We don't have any markers in our nest. We don't place any timers in there. We're just all dependent on marking those nests off as we're trained by the state, seeing what happens when we monitor these nests every morning, and then when we see the tracks go out, we know we did a good job.
It's like more of like a hands-off approach.
Very much so. They got it, cause they've been doing this for millions of years. But we do the best we can.
So now we're going to go into our threats. So one of our biggest threats is plastic pollution, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. Microplastics and macroplastics are often ingested due to being mistaken for food. These can range from shopping bags, bottle caps, and pretty much anything out of plastic can turn into microplastics due to it just breaking down. So we really try to promote not using plastic in general. I'm going to get into that later, but besides being ingested, there are barriers for them, like that. This picture right here was actually found last year on survey. Just a plastic cup that was clear, and the sea turtle couldn't tell that it was a cup, so it got stuck. And then this is a plastic bag that looks similar to a jellyfish. And then we do balloon surveys, but we take data from all the balloons that we find. I think we're at I want to say 1,200 balloons, but I think it might be more.
We've collected over 1,000 balloons on our just our shoreline. We collect that data that we then submit to local municipalities to help them with plastic pollution. Miami Beach just passed a balloon ban actually, and help with the data that we've given them. So we help that out.
So plastic is a big problem with our sea turtles. Next, we're going to touch on like the chemical pollution side. So chemical pollutants can come from fertilizer runoff or oil spills. I know Office of Resiliency is big on promoting this information, but scientists have, I guess, linked the fertilizer runoff to the fibropapillomatosis, like what Sophie was talking about earlier, those cauliflower-like tumors. So this disease causes internal, external tumors that kind of prohibits them from doing things that they need to do to survive. So it could be over their eyes, so they can't see. We see it a lot in like their armpits, if you will. So it's hard for them to swim. And then even in their throat, so it can cause them to choke or not be able to eat properly. So this is only seen in greens as of right now, or as of what we know.
It can be seen in most, but it's most commonly noted in the green sea turtle populations that you may see like year round here.
I don't know if you can see it well, but these are like those tumors right there. Yeah, we also see like fishing line getting wrapped around them. It's very sad. And going off of that, fishing operations, sea turtles are constantly entangled in these fishing gear or just by bycatch. So there's something called a turtle excluder device, which helps reduce the number of sea turtles caught via bycatch, which is right here. And then there's a different kind of hook called a circle hook that you can use, which will also prevent sea turtle catches as well. But you can see right here, there's a fishing hook there. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Frost Museum, but their sea turtle actually has a permanent fishing hook just like in their throat. And they had to keep it in captivity due to that.
Why don't they cut the hook out?
Sometimes it's kind of like some things you just can't surgically remove safely, you know what I mean? And then boat strikes. So this is actually our number one cause for our strandings in Miami-Dade County. And just to go back to strandings, that basically means that a sea turtle is not able, usually they kind of wash up on the shore, but sometimes it's just a sea turtle that's not able to swim properly in the ocean. So this is actually as a result of a boat strike. Go ahead.
Thing into and then for the people online. So this is a loggerhead. Yeah, I can walk around with it. This is a loggerhead sea turtle, and so unfortunately she had a bit of a abrasion right here in the head due to a boat strike. So as Emily said, these are the number one causing for our strandings here in Miami-Dade County. So we always promote safe boating practices, like how you said in the Keys. You did that quick turn away. That's actually what we promote in most sea turtle safe boating programs, is that quick little turnaround for them. And then also like turning off the engine, making sure like come a bit around, make sure that the turtle's okay. Usually they duck down, they're pretty used to people, but you just never know. With also turtles and manatees as well.
Can their shells heal?
Not. It depends on where it is.
It's not gonna like grow back, but there's things that can be done to help.
But I mean, it doesn't naturally like fuse back together.
It would depend on the trauma that happens to that animal. So as Emily has said before too, this is their spine. So this is fused to their shell. So this is why, like, even though this is their biggest protection out there, it is so like connected to their body. And there's all these nerve endings in here, so they will feel that hit from a boat. Even if you think, oh, like it's fine, it's a hard shell. Like this is like pretty much like you getting like smacked in the back with something. You want to be always aware of the animals that we share our habitat with. So we have these kind of props here. They can be a little sad, but it's to kind of know like this is a really big concern and always to keep awareness, especially when you're on the water enjoying everything.
Another thing I like to mention while we have this out is that this is their spine and their ribs would typically be right here. So when a boat does hit like the back of their shell like this, it could break the ribs and actually puncture their lungs, which can cause them to drown or die mostly. But also these propellers can instantly kill these sea turtles. It could cause severe paralysis. And also, even if it doesn't look like something happened to their shell after they've been hit, it can cause something called positive buoyancy disorder, which we call bubble butt. So basically, these air pockets will fill into their shell, and it'll not really allow them to swim properly. So they'll try and like dive down, but they'll kind of just be stuck upside down.
Oh, sorry. I just know it's my slide. I'll come over. The mic's over here.
Take it away.
Hi, folks. Again, my name is Sophia. I am the lighting program coordinator for our team. I am mainly in charge of those nighttime light inspections where we go out at the beach at night and we document properties in Miami-Dade County that could pose an issue to sea turtles due to the artificial light that they illuminate on the beach. So I'm going to get into why this is an issue and why we should care about it. So as Emily said, sea turtles follow that brightest horizon. To them, that is the moonlight reflecting on the water. People think it's just the moon itself, but they're looking for that reflection to guide them. And they also use the dark contrast of the dune behind them. That helps them navigate. That helps our little sea turtles navigate once they come out of the nest for the first time to go out. And it also helps the nesting moms come back to the ocean after she lays a nest. However, with, of course, coastal development, we've increased the amount of lights that are seen on our beach. It's crazy. You can see it right in this image right here. This is a leatherback sea turtle that actually stranded back in December at Christmas time due to other circumstances. However, our team took this photo because it just illustrates so well, like for a sea turtle, like all of these lights are going to look like the brightest horizon. It's going to be very confusing to them. It would be confusing to me if I was a sea turtle, honestly. So just speaking for them. But this is a very big problem that we see, especially in Southeast Florida and Florida everywhere with the increased coastal development. It's just all these more light sources out there. While these animals are out crawling the beach because they're confused with the light sources, they're at a higher likelihood of dehydration and exhaustion. They're expending lots of energy. The hatchlings, as babies, they have actually a little thing on their tummy called a yolk sac. And what they do is they'll absorb that yolk sac in the nest and then have a little bit too to get them to go out to the Sargasso Sea or wherever they need to go. So while they're crawling around as they're confused, they're expending that energy. Especially our nesting females, they're expending energy by crawling out on the beach. They're spending a lot more energy just kind of crawling around, pushing around. These are big, heavy turtles, so that's even more for them. So it's a lot of time spent out there that they're getting tired, and sometimes these animals can pass away on their journey, getting lost. They might not make it back to the ocean. So this is the issue that we see mainly with our hatchlings. So this is like what we most commonly find our artificial light issues affect. So up in the top right is what a natural hatch out looks like. So we have a little bit of a depression. So when the sea turtles, they all go out together mostly. Sometimes we have stragglers. They kind of come out, we call it a boil because the sand kind of bubbles on the top, and so they're all boiling out together. And what we would say is that this hatch out was successful. It's this kind of uniform path that they make. It's like a nice cone. They're all going the same way uniformly out to the ocean. We know that they knew the right way to go. And the bottom, we see little race car tracks going all down the beach. This is what we see a lot, especially in our big city areas. They're running around. They don't know what way's what. They're just trying to get to the ocean, but they don't know. This is what we would see and report to the state as a disorientation event, which we describe as the sea turtles are lost and confused, and they're mostly not making it to the ocean. Maybe some will make it, but for this kind of event, we would say no. Sometimes they misorient. They can kind of make their way back real quick, but most of the time, they'll be very confused, and we may find some in the morning. We may not find some. So these are some images of some baby hatchlings that we found, actually. These guys will crawl for a very long time. They are tiny and they are mighty. And they will go sometimes a mile or so, just trying to find very much. So because with our program, we are permitted to document these disorientation events, and we are required to find out what happened to every track. So if there's a nest like this, say there's like 90 of them going, don't know where they're going, I have to follow all of them and make sure that what happened to them, can I find them alive, did they not make it to the ocean, what happened? So these are these pictures from some of the live ones that we found. So this little guy actually, if you're familiar with the South Beach area, especially like near Ocean Drive, and there's that little grassy knoll park between the main roadway and the park itself, that's where this guy was found. So they crawled all the way behind the hard pack, past the dune into the grass. And so luckily we were able to find this guy and take him in and make sure he was all good. And then we also found this little guy under here. So he's under a beach chair furniture, kind of like what will get left out in the morning, and they'll put the beach chairs or the cabanas out. He kind of got lost in here. This is why we always work with our beach vendors, actually, to make sure their chairs are stacked. so that we don't have hatchlings getting lost during the season, or even our nesting moms, they can hit these stacked chairs and then it obscures their nesting attempt, which we also will report to the state.
So when you gather up all of these survivors,
Mm-hmm.
do you take them to the ocean and release them, or do you have to kind of resuscitate them a little bit?
It will depend. If they're very tired, we'll hold on to them, maybe try to release them at night, or if sometimes they'll get disoriented and go into pools or hot tubs, we will take that to a rehab facility because they need to be treated for that. But if they're lucky enough and it's kind of early enough, we are permitted to release them. Yes.
How about the lights on the beach walk? I'm sure that when they put the lights in on the beach walk, they're very low
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to be a soft light, but I always wonder, like, because they're on every single night, do they, is that dangerous?
For the city of Miami Beach, are you talking about those lights specific?
Turtles.
So
Right, the beaches,
that
in the
whole-
40s, 50s, they're putting lights on the boat.
So
All on the beach walk, the lights at night.
for that beach walk, usually they're fine because they're low, shielded, and long. They meet the characteristics that the state says is turtle friendly. So usually those are okay. The big issues that I would say are kind of like big lights that are really bright and white coming from like a pole or like a whole lit parking lot just kind of going. That would be probably more of an issue. But even though the lighting affects hatchlings mostly, we do see this with our nesting mothers. This is a sea turtle that had stranded a few years ago. She was crawling up to nest and she crawled past the dune and over into a condominium, and she fell down the stairs of the condominium and she was found here. Luckily, our team was able to respond as they found her in the morning, and we were able to take her and she was okay. However, even though the little guys will get confused, the mothers as well will get confused and can end up in a place where she really is not supposed to be. So this affects all ages in sea turtles, not just the hatchlings.
If they're confused, say in that particular situation, do they still lay their nest? Is that like there's a drop dead date where those eggs have to get out of their body no matter where they are, or
She could hold on to them or she could drop the eggs. That has happened before. If they're startled, they could drop the eggs, sadly. Sometimes if they're crawling around disoriented and they're just like, I have to drop them, they might drop them. Or she may orient and come back. There's no way to tell, but that does happen sometimes, sadly, is that she'll just drop them.
We even had this year, there were a few nests that only had like a few eggs in it. I excavated one that only had like 8 eggs in it. So we're assuming something probably scared her or alarmed her, and she kind of just like, oh, get out of here.
It's sad. It's very sad because then that whole clutch is lost. However, we are a seabird station, so we also did want to talk about other wildlife that are affected by artificial light. So shorebirds and seabirds are also affected. These seabirds and migratory birds will get confused by artificial lighting. It can cause collisions, entrapments, strandings, groundings, interference with navigation. I'm sure our seabird friends have maybe come across this or heard about this before. What folks have noted is that the intensity of the light and the color of the light has the potential to confuse our wildlife, which is something that, for the birds, which is also something that we see with our sea turtles. So going off intensity of a light, a big bright light source will confuse them for being the brightest horizon. So that's why we're looking to shield those light sources on the beach or maybe turn them off when not in use, as to not confuse them. Also, the color of the light. So most wildlife light is recommended to be orange, amber, or red in color because those are longer wavelength lights and they're less destructive to the animals. Lights that are cool white, blue, or green, those tend to be more disruptive to our animals, and they also are a shorter wavelength of light. So these affect not only our sea turtles, but other wildlife here too in Miami. So this is a serious issue. However, it is super preventable. We always like to pass along our tips and tricks to you folks to have your back pocket, but also to share with your family and friends so they have it in their back pocket. So the biggest thing we like to say is close your blinds at night if you live on a unit on the beach, and to turn off your interior lights when not in use. Window lights is the most common light that we see on our beaches, and they can be potentially disorienting for our sea turtles. But also this is like the easiest fix. So we just ask that if you live on the beach, just close your blinds at night after 9 p.m. If you have blackout curtains, those are great. Some buildings also have window tinting installed for their property, so that's even better. You don't have to worry about, I don't have my blinds off, like is it gonna go off? Like that window tinting is there so that that light is less likely to leach on the beach, and it's not gonna be an issue for wildlife. But it is more of an expensive fix, so we're always like shut the blinds, or like if you're, it's like 10 p.m, like shut that light off. You don't need to have it on at night. Saves you money, saves a turtle something. It's all good. If you have exterior lights outside your property, we ask that it follows the FWC golden rules, which is those lights are low, shielded, and long. Low refers to that light being low to the ground. Like we said with the beach walk, those are actually pretty okay. Anything that's more than 15 feet might be confused as the brightest horizon for them. We like to keep them low to the ground. Keeping that light shielded shields that light source, so they're not looking at the brightest point, like a bulb. They're like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like, I'm gonna go to that. So when you shield it, it directs that light downward, and they're not as distracted by it. It also actually saves energy and cost efficiency. And of course, long is referring to that wavelength of light, which is that red, orange, or amber in color. We also encourage protecting those dune systems. They do an excellent job of blocking out artificial light leaching on the beach. I see this a lot in actually the South Miami Beach. There's a strip of hotels, super bright. However, there's a big dune system and good distance behind that actually blocks that light out for them. And so when I document those areas, I'm like, oh, they're actually not that bad because they have the dune system protecting them. And then they don't have to worry about it because the dunes got them. So it's all good there. We ask that, of course, don't step in the dunes, protect them, don't have your kids run in them. They're doing a really good job for the ecosystem, so leave them be. If you have a phone flashlight at night, you like to walk the beach at night, we just ask that, like, making sure that isn't left on by mistake or having it on, because those light sources are much closer to our animals than maybe a beachfront property out in the distance. So just being aware of that. If you like to walk the beach at night, especially during hatchling season, which we see a lot in July and August, in September right now, maybe carrying around a red flashlight. We always support that. We use them for our actually public nighttime hatchling releases. They're these little things that come in a pack on Amazon. They're like really cheap. Highly encourage you to check those out. But just making sure those phone flashlights are off. And of course, following your local lighting ordinance. Miami-Dade County doesn't have a county-wide lighting ordinance that some other counties in Florida do. However, most of our nesting beaches have some sort of sea turtle protection against lighting. So if you're unsure of the conditions in your area and want to know more about that, please check that out. Highly encourage to be aware of kind of what's on your area. You can go on municode.com and look up your municipal, say like Miami Beach, and then you can look up sea turtle, and then all of the conditions on there, you can go through those. Miami Beach actually today had a hearing about updating their lighting ordinance, and it passed the first hearing. So there's going to be updated language on there and other stricter regulations kind of on the outside lights for new properties. And it's going to go through a second reading as well at the end of the month. So good for us that it passed the first reading. So really happy about that and all the work that the city was doing. So that's all I have for lighting, but Emma's going to go into more ways of how you can help.
So kind of just wrapping up our threats, kind of the big picture is that our involvement or our existence is kind of what is threatening these sea turtles. So that's why I kind of want to get into the more ways you can help, so you can kind of lessen our impact on these sea turtles and their ecosystem. So my first suggestion is being mindful of marine life. So while you're out on the beach, while you're out boating, just keep your distance from our wildlife. Don't feed them, don't pet them, don't do anything that can interfere with them. Just enjoy their presence, take some pictures of them from a safe distance. But if you do see anything like any lethargic animals, definitely contact FWC or your local authorized personnel. A big one is using reef-friendly sunscreen. So our sea turtles like to spend a lot of time at our reefs, and if these reefs are dying off due to all this pollution coming from our sunblock, then our sea turtles are not going to have anywhere to spend their time, to eat, and probably just won't be seen around the area in general. So I would recommend using reef-friendly sunscreens. This I included 2 examples here: raw elements and then stream to seeds are 2 big ones. But there's just really toxic ingredients that I kind of emphasize, which is oxybenzone, octocrylene, octinoxate. There's a bunch on there. But if you can definitely Google which ones are reef-friendly, which ones are not. And this doesn't just harm sea turtles, it could harm any animal, really. Another one, like I mentioned before, is avoiding single-use plastic. So if you got a reusable cup, I recommend getting one of those. We have reusable lunch boxes, anything that can, be thrown away. Just try and find something that you can just wash instead, is how I like to put it. So by reducing the quantity of single-use plastics, this will preserve our ecosystems and our marine life in general. This is a big one that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about enough. Before I was in this position, I didn't even think about this. Our sandcastles and our holes on the beach, they will actually cause disorientations, kind of like the lighting. But if they are blocking this hatchling's way to the ocean, they can either fall into the hole or they can get stuck and it'll cause them to become very lethargic. They'll be like wandering around trying to get around the sandcastle. That might not seem very big to us, but to them it's like a giant building. So you can definitely dig your holes during the day and build your sandcastles, but before you leave the beach, just fill in those holes, knock down those sandcastles. They're going to get knocked down anyways eventually, so might as well do it before the beach raiders come in the morning, and so our sea turtles can get back out to the ocean safely.
Do you communicate with the beach rakers now that you're saying that?
Yeah. Yes.
They can't rake the beach before we clear the area.
Oh.
So the beaches do not open until we say it is.
Are they
Right.
Miami-Dade County employees also?
Yes.
So that's helpful.
Get up very early.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
30 minutes before sunrise.
You're on the beach.
Yep.
An hour before sunrise, we're setting up.
That's true.
We're getting ready. And then our last one is don't leave anything behind. I like to say leave nothing but your footprints. So anything you take to the beach can be something that will disorient our sea turtle, just like our sandcastles, just like our lighting. So if you have towels, be sure to bring them home with you. If you have chairs, umbrellas, any of these things we see a lot of our nesting mothers run into these things while they're trying to nest, which can deter them away from nesting. So if you see any trash on the ground, we hope you would pick it up. Or at least contact someone to pick it up if it's something you can't pick up. Yeah, anything unnatural is a hazard to our wildlife. So now, if you are in Miami-Dade County, and other counties have their protocols as well, but if you see a stranded sea turtle, these are our phone numbers. If you want to take a picture, write it down. We have 2 stranding lines. Our first one, 305, 310, 3046. That's our main stranding line, and that's if you see a sea turtle that is looking lethargic on the beach, or if you find a hatchling in the dune, like the pictures mentioned before, definitely give us a call. But that's usually from sunrise to sundown. If you're overnight and you see something, usually that's when the nesting is happening and when the hatchlings are coming out. But if you see something that doesn't look right, if a sea turtle looks injured, you can definitely call the FWC 24-hour wildlife alert line. And then if you see any poaching, any vandalism, definitely report that to the police and to FWC as well. And right now, like we mentioned before, we are ending our hatchling season, but this is a little protocol, a little graphic to help you out if you happen to come across any hatchlings in the dunes. Feel free to take a picture of this, but essentially you would just give us a call and we could definitely give you these instructions. But if you were to find a hatchling, we want to keep it in like a bucket or what are they, like the freeze containers, like on Miami Beach.
Yeah, if you have a container, maybe even like if your kid has like a sand, oh my gosh, thing like the sand castles with a
What
bucket.
is like
Yeah,
the ice?
you can put them in there.
But yeah, you want
A cooler.
a cooler. That's what I was looking for. So just put like very, very I don't want to say dry, but not damp. So like very lightly damp sand, and then wait for us to come pick it up. Definitely try not to release it into the water unless we're telling you otherwise, because there's specific protocols we like to make sure we do, so they are safely emitted into the water. But, yeah, another picture if you want to take it. This is all also on our Instagram. And thank you guys so much for caring about our sea turtles, and thank you Welcome, Heather, for having us. We really appreciate it. If you have any other questions, you can email our program holder, which is Sarah Tyler. If you have any lighting questions, Sophia, and then I run our Instagram. So if you have any collaboration questions, you can contact me or message on Instagram for sure.
I'd like to thank you guys for the work you do. Sea turtles, like land turtles, can you date their age by the boxes on their shell?
Unfortunately for sea turtles, researchers are looking into how to age. There isn't a set way to do yet. I know some of them try to look at the shell, but unfortunately aging a sea turtle right now is a bit hard.
Because I think on land turtles, you can tell the age by the amount of boxes.
Maybe. That'd be cool. I actually did not know that.
I'm not sure.
I got the sea turtles. I don't know many of the land turtles, but they're still pretty cool. It's still cool stuff.
Two questions.
Yeah, ask away.
You're part of the Sea Turtle Conservation Program, which is part of the Parks Department
Yes.
of Miami-Dade County.
Mm-hmm.
How big is the staff of the Sea Turtle Conservation Program?
20 of us?
We're about 15 to 20 individuals.
Decent-sized
So it's
staff.
not just you two.
No. We'd be carrying a lot of work.
So about 20 staff members, and they run the beach every morning, identifying these nests, protecting them,
Mm-hmm. So-
ensuring that these, turtles are protected or whatever.
Exactly. The only areas that our program doesn't monitor is Virginia Key. They are monitored by the Moraes program. I don't know if you folks have heard or live down south, but they work with other marine animals and they do a good job. But they do the nesting monitoring for Virginia Key. And then Bill Baggs State Park is by the National Park Service. They have their own team.
Does Broward County have a similar
Yes, they do.
program? Okay.
They partner also with some of the research universities up there. So NSU, they work a lot with, and so they do some other activities up there too.
I'm sure you tag some of the big ones in the water to track their migration.
Unfortunately, our program doesn't do that, but there are other programs that do. Yeah. I believe FSU works on tagging, and then Sea Turtle Conservancy, who we partner with for lighting, they also have a tagging program, and they actually tag turtles that can go all the way to Costa Rica, and you can see where they go, and it's really cool.
Do they come back to lay their eggs in the same place every year, or they just random?
Not the exact same place, like some species do, but it'll be in the same general area. And yeah, we'll have, if it's a hatchling on Miami Beach, most likely they'll come back to that area, not that spot, but they can even go a little bit north into Broward or even south as well.
Is the university down on Keystone, is that part of FIU?
That's Rosensteel.
What is that?
We both went there.
So Rosensteel,
Yeah.
actually we both graduated from Rosensteel,
Excellent.
but they don't necessarily do work with our program, but they did help me here's some opportunities, look into programs. And so I applied to this program and did my master's research with this program. So it was lighting. So that's kind of what my focus has been. And I was able to help create the program with my thesis so that not only the work that I did can be kind of recreated and keep going on for after, so many years.
So when they picked up all the sargassum off the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and they cleaned up the beach, and there's no seaweed and sargassum on the beach, was that dangerous for the turtles? I mean, it's like a real, you don't want the sargassum there because people don't like it, it smells.
No, but the turtles
But
are reporting it,
if
trying to swim to the
But
ocean.
if it's, endangering the turtles, do we give it up and just leave it?
We report the sargassum. If you do see a pile, there are agencies and CFAN and other groups that want that data to report. But for sargassum itself, it's hard because the Sargasso Sea is all sargassum, and so the little hatchlings, they'll go in there and they'll eat that. Sometimes though the big piles can be blocks. It's a little bit of a tricky situation.
But they took so much of it away. They just came up these huge trucks and scooped it up, and I think they put it into compost recycling or something like that, but they took it off the beach.
I'm unsure for that, but
It depends on like how much is there, because sometimes it'll take the oxygen out of the water, which could be very like dangerous.
She's referring to, like, I guess 2 years ago or so.
Yeah.
All this sargassum all over the Caribbean and
mm-hmm.
tourism. People were saying people aren't coming to our beaches because the beaches stink and all of that. So yeah, but that was an anomaly.
It probably doesn't impact the turtles on land as much as it would as if it's in the water still. I mean, it definitely could like disorient them, I guess.
It's like there's like some good, there's some bad, but usually like the county is looking into they have a reporting program for that, and they try to like work with that as best they can.
Do you have programs where you take the public out to watch the hatchlings run to the sea, or the turtles come lay eggs? You do?
Not at night. We don't have any turtle walk programs that other groups do, like in Palm Beach or Broward.
That's where I went to the Canaveral Seashore. There's a
Oh,
fantastic
okay.
program.
That's nice. Unfortunately, we don't offer those types of programs. We offer public hatchling nighttime releases. So you folks can come out, and if we have a lot of hatchlings, you can come see us release. We do like the kind of the program you may have seen at Bill Bird, where they come and they talk. And we also do public excavation events. So you folks can come during the daytime, see how we do a nest inventory when we dig up the nest after it hatches, and we find all the contents in there, and we record that data. And sometimes we will find hatchlings inside, sometimes maybe not, but most of the time, like hatched eggs, whole eggs, all that stuff. It's a really cool event to see. You get to be kind of like a biologist for a couple hours. It's really fun. And if you have kids too, they really love those types of programs.
These programs are probably not going to happen this year just because we're closing out, but next year we're definitely going to be picking it back up.
Starting in spring. Okay.
Yeah, starting, yeah.
When the nests get laid for the excavations, those are
Probably
probably
June, July.
They'll probably
Yeah.
June, July.
All right. Any other questions?
Would I be able to see them if they're on here?
I guess we're keeping our lights down.
Wow.
We're listening.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Just checking. Thank you. Okay.